is Blair Durham with Black Wall Street Today, your media hub for all things Black entrepreneurship, politics, news, and events in Hampton Roads and beyond.
Hey, would you like to be a guest on Black Wall Street Today with Blair Durham? The link is in the show notes.
And now, here's your host, Blair Durham.
Greetings.
Stay locked in.
Good morning, and welcome to this edition of Coffee Connect with Black Brand. I am Blair Durham, co-founder, president of Black Brand, our region's Black Chamber of Commerce. And we really created this series in an attempt to just be a bit more engaging, provide a weekly space for networking and for engaging with dynamic leaders such as yourself. So it's all about knowledge transfer, right? Sharing the ideas and concepts that are helping us to be successful in business so that we can grow. I am excited this morning that we have Mr. Claudell Clark with us. He brings nearly 20 years experience as both a player and a coach for Norfolk State University, Behold the Green and Gold, and is invested in developing meaningful sports relationships with external and major corporations. Prior to joining the Hampton Roads Sports Commission, Clark was the director of Norfolk Fest Events, where he worked alongside a talented team of professionals to produce 13 premier festivals in downtown Norfolk with an annual attendance of more than 500,000 people. He's created and maintained sponsorship relationships with Fortune 500 companies and raised over $400,000 in corporate sponsorships in less than a 2-year period. Clark also served 13 years as head coach of the NSU baseball program, where he presided over 3 of NSU's best seasons in recent memory between 2015 and 2017. The 2017 season marked the 6th time in Clark's tenure that NSU reached the championship round of the MEAC tournament. Clark also helped create partnerships between NSU baseball and Tidewater area school systems through initiatives like Norfolk Public Schools Day at the NSU Tides exhibition game and the Hit the Books reading program. Under Clark's leadership, NSU also began the Spartan Baseball Speaker Series networking event for its players and launched the first pitch dinner fundraiser to highlight the opening of the season. I'm excited. I'm going to glean from this conversation. Welcome, Claudell. How are you?
Good morning to you, Blair. Great to be here. We've both become very experienced with Zoom. An effective form of communication, nonetheless, is a blessing to be here.
Indeed. It is great to have you. Looks like all systems are go on our share. So I want to open it up just for a bit of dialogue between you and I with regard to your experience, and then certainly you can take over as we kind of get those juices going. So I'd first like to hear just kind of how you got into this work. I find it to be challenging and rewarding, the whole piece, building relationships, seeking sponsorships. And sometimes as I'm just kind of sharing with my spouse the ins and outs of my day, he's fascinated. And to see you kind of doing it at such a high level, I'm inspired. Would love to just hear kind of, was this a trajectory that you knew you'd take, or kind of how you got into these roles?
Well, Blair, it was really accidental. Starting my career off at Norfolk State was not the people person. It was one of the terms I used on this little presentation. Certainly was not, a person who wanted to ask or seek out funds from others. Was a people person only to recruit for my ball team or to coach my players or motivate those guys. I wanted nothing to do with, the external relationships. But I found very quickly at Norfolk State had a great program, but I found very quickly that these other institutions, had additional resources, had additional equipment, had additional things for their players, amenities for the program. And I knew then that I would need to reach out to others, reach out to the external community, reach out to the parents, expand my network, which we'll talk about, to bring in resources and equipment that we needed. So it really started out of necessity. And then it started with a $100 donation and a set of batting gloves. for my team, and it grew to scoreboards, and it grew to field improvements, and it grew to other jobs, and it grew to national partnerships with CEOs and presidents of companies and individual donors of all levels. So it just kind of grew out of necessity, and it grew out of this demand for me to change, just as the virus has made us virtual and made us expand and made us create and made us change our capabilities. So it was certainly out of demand, and then I grew a liking to it, and it has grown to this day, and have been very energetic to learn more about it.
Yeah, necessity, right? As the mother of invention. Pretty cool story. So I don't know, take us through, we have a cadre of nonprofit members, about 25 executive directors that we work very closely with through our nonprofit leadership academy. And this is a sore spot. Many have sort of decided that, instead of allowing their nonprofit to become a true community-based organization, that they could simply just fund, the effort, because they may lack the relationships, or they may feel that they lack the skills to really ask. What are some of the tenets that you would say in terms of building the appropriate relationships first? Let's start there, and then we'll get into kind of the ask.
Certainly, I think it's a matter of you first learning your story and being the best at telling your story, and not afraid to tell it, and then understanding how and where to tell that story. If that's social media, if that's your own networking connections, if that's family, if that's your religious circles, if that's your business circles or your own work circles, just learning how to tell the story and communicate what it is that you're promoting and what you're selling and what your mission and your goals are. Because who better to tell your story than you? And don't be afraid to tell that story. Defining where you want to tell that story. Is that your business community? Is that your work community? Is that your neighborhood community? And then also, being the best at that. So just kind of defining what it is that you do, being the best at that, and getting others to believe in what it is that you're trying to do.
Yeah. And so it sounds like it should come easy because it's your story, right? But I hear you saying that some growth even in learning to tell that story well. Like you said, being the best at it. I mean, what does that look like? Maybe you could just talk us through, or give us some pointers on crafting the story, telling the story.
Well, I think it's sometimes we worry so much about a fundraising conference that we've gone to. We worry so much about official training that we've gotten. We worry so much about a sponsorship proposal that we might be learning from, or persons in our network, or an entity that we observe that we need to be like. So many times we need to be ourselves. We need to write that sponsorship letter, or write that sponsorship proposal, or make that ask, or set up those meetings, being ourselves. On where we want to set them up, telling the story we want to tell, in the mode or way that we want to tell them. And when you become yourself, when you're not afraid to be bold and reach out to persons and really tell that story by any way possible, social media, telling it by way of Zoom, sending out correspondence. When you're able to do that, people can see that you're genuine. People can see that you're sincere. People can see that you're original. And they want to gravitate to that. If that's a fit, they will gravitate to that. So yes, take the professional development. Yes, take your tips and strategies that you get through or programs like this and others, but be yourself and be bold, and don't be afraid to use that training and mold it into what it is that you want to deliver to get your message across to other persons that you're trying to fundraise from and connect with.
Mm-hmm. I like what you said, because it highlights the fact that there's not necessarily, one right way to get it done, and then that authenticity, a lot of times that new relationship can be birthed. A question here from Cheryl. How do you find sponsors that are a good fit for you? Yeah, I love that question, right? Trying to find that area where the brand promise kind of aligns with your mission. That can be a process. What would you say?
Well, you want to look at maybe industry trends or similar trends. So organizations such as yours, who are they getting sponsored by? Um, Businesses such as yours, who are they partnering with? Events such as yours, who do they have at the bottom? So it's not just about simply piling on or simply stealing sponsors, but it's just giving you ideas. If your event is sponsored by the business community or other nonprofits, or you see individual foundations, that gives you an idea on where to start if you don't already have an idea. So again, just trying to see, how other businesses and how other causes and how other foundations are positioned that can give you a help in starting what you're trying to do. Also, you want to, by way of your networking, by way of your observation of these potential donors or sources, you want to see where their passion points are. You want to see what's a fit for them. So we kind of turn the question around on the donor. We turn the question around on the foundation. What are their fits? Are they looking for youth? Are they looking for business? Are they looking for live events? Are they looking for music? Are they looking for technology-based causes? Are they looking for nonprofit causes? What are they really looking for? And if you tell your story as a fit to what they're looking for, then your percentage chance for success certainly goes up. If it's not a fit, you can have the greatest story, but it's just not a fit for their organization or their pot of money, and they have to move to somebody else who does fit. So don't be discouraged. You want to do so much research to position yourself in the right lane with persons who are amenable and have passion points for what you do, and your level of success will go up if you're looking in the right places.
Sure. All right. So, Claudel, man, I noticed that Cox, they do a ton of sponsorship around initiatives that kind of look like mine. Um, but I don't have a Cox relationship. How do I get through the gatekeeper to a decision maker? How do I start to affiliate and be in places where Cox executives might hang out?
Well, one of two things. We talk about Cox, but any organization,
Sure.
you want to seek out these persons maybe on social media, LinkedIn or Facebook, or wherever you can see them interacting. You want to get in their way purposely, and you want to get your calls or your activity or your show or your branding or your logo in front of these persons purposely, professionally. Also, it's a little bit more difficult now because things are virtual or by way of Zoom, but you want to be a part of what they do. So if they have a show like this, or they have opportunities where organizations can come in and interact with them to ask questions and be visible in front of those persons, you want to try to break that ice or develop that network any way possible with things such as that. From there, once they've seen what you do, you see what they do. You're looking for ways to make that connection. So can you have that person on your show? Can you have a meeting with that person? Can you be on that person's show? How can you professionally get in that person's way? How can you professionally break that ice to have that conversation, to talk about that partnership if it's a fit? And I think you go from there professionally and intentionally. I think it's a more of a natural and a non-synthetic meeting and connection, and that person can certainly see from there where you're trying to go with this.
Sounds too like I need to have something of value that I can kind of offer them
Mhm.
to help get that relationship
You
off.
talk in terms of deliverables and in your inventory. So do you have a show as inventory? Do you have digital signage as inventory? Do you have speaker series as inventory? Do you have outreach programs as inventory? Do you have ways of end user or a potential sponsor to get in front of your attendees, or data on your attendees to where that might be valuable to them? What is it that you have to offer these donors? What is that you have to offer these foundation managers? What is it that you have to offer these funders or grant keepers or these organizations you're trying to get in front of? So, with your strategic plan, you said you're the co-founder, there's another person out there with your board, with the persons who advise you. What are the deliverables? I don't care how hard it is to pull them out of thin air in some cases. What are the deliverables that you can create? What's your sponsorship proposal look like so that a Cox or another major organization will see that your ask is attractive and allow you to get to the table to have further conversation? Because once you get in the door, we talked about being the best at telling your story. We talked about being sincere and being original. if you're that person and you get through the door and have that meeting, you will certainly make that sale. If you can get that meeting set up.
Yeah, just got a note. One of our members is trying to get on. Had some challenges with this platform, and I know she needs to be here.
Take your time.
Yeah, no, I just want to see if I can copy and paste this information.
While you're typing, oftentimes, and I've been there and done that, we get fixated with a company. So he says, look, I got to have Verizon, or I got to have Cox, but there may be another player out there with equal or greater funds who is willing to partner with you and to back you up. Some of these companies get so much exposure and their footprint is spread so far. They may not seek additional partnerships, but you have emerging companies that you always have to look for. And it's happened many times that they're new to the area or new to the region who's looking to get their name out, who's looking to expand their footprint. And you can be that person's vehicle and that voice to do so. And then here it is that you are, with this new player on the block, this new competitor maybe to these organizations, kind of waving each other's flag.
So let me ask this, right? So I'm on LinkedIn, are there specific titles that I should maybe be looking at when I'm are there specific departments within organizations that I should be trying to kind of build bridges with? What would you say?
Well, we talk in terms of fundraising and development as communications, as relationships. So you're looking for a community manager or a community development manager, a VP of communications or marketing, persons who are going to be external in nature to these organizations. And those are the persons who communicate that message and communicate what's a fit to them or who answer those questions. And those are the persons who are supposed to be looking for fits for those organizations or who can partially or sometimes totally make the decision on who to partner with and who to extend or position the organization's brand with.
Mm-hmm. So those are the ones who should respond to an email.
They should, but maybe email does not work. You have other partners on LinkedIn. We have mutual connections, or on Facebook and these different other platforms. Maybe you have other persons who you don't even know who work right in the organization who can walk down the hall. A Black brand. The power that you all have. Leverage your network, leverage your board about persons who may be in that organization or who may have friends within that organization who can set up that meeting just by walking down the hall or sending that email. We get so many emails, so that sometimes a certain person's name in a subject matter or a subject line, can prompt a response. Even when, and keep in mind, the workload on folks, or on people, professionals. Even companies that you have a relationship with, or persons in companies that you have a relationship, even it's hard for you and I to get through to them, and we have a relationship with those persons. So imagine people who we don't know, or who don't know your calls or don't know your organization, how tough that is. So it is tough to get the response. It is tough to get the interaction that you want, but you have to keep at it and strategically work to leverage your network, which we're talking about networking today. Strategically work to leverage your network to get into those doors and to get those meetings set up so that you can tell that story. Yeah.
Good morning to those that just joined. You may not have had the benefit of hearing about Claudell's extensive experience and expertise with building relationships, creating sponsorship. I mean, it's just a few of the things here, and then to work with fest events, building large, mega events, 500,000 people in attendance, raising hundreds of thousands of dollars for organizations. And so we've opened up a dialogue about how to, what are the nuts and bolts, recognizing that Claudell didn't start out doing this work, didn't intend to do this work initially, but there was a need within his organization, Norfolk State. He saw other folks were doing it successfully, started asking some questions, and has kind of organically grown this area in his own, I guess, professional capacity. So that's the basis. Certainly, if you have questions, I see a couple of nonprofit leaders on here. If you have questions, would love to entertain those. Between now and then, though, Claudell, Um, talk about kind of growing the ask, right? I think about how when we get started, we're very comfortable. We can ask for $100, $500, $1,000, $2,500. Um, when it's time for us to make that leap, we've got the strategic plan in place, we've got the budget, we've got the capacity. Um, is a $10,000 or a $25,000 or even $100,000 ask the same as the smaller ask? Or at what point do I need to start, doing coffee or, just talk through the mechanics of growing that.
Well, I think you roll out the 25,000, 50,000, 100,000. I think you roll out that care and treatment. Maybe not those terms, maybe that proposal, maybe not that ask or that number, but I think you roll out that treatment day one, and then let people know that they're equally as important, whether they're a $100 donor or a $100,000 donor. And people who are listening, we've heard all this before, but you just have to remind yourself that you've gone out and researched the capacity of these persons and these organizations. So you have your list of people that you want to be next to. You have your list of people that you want to have coffee with. Not much of a coffee drinker, but coffee's great. I take people to Starbucks, they get coffee, I get orange juice, but either way we're drinking. But
right.
You're treating them, like they're that 50 or 100,000 off the bat, because you just don't know their capabilities in some cases. In some cases you do, but you have to treat people genuinely. You have to treat everyone you come in contact with like they are that major donor, and carry yourself around each and every relationship, which is time consuming, as if they're your most important donor, because you don't know what they can grow to, and you don't know who they can lead you to once they see what it is that you do and how you professionally carry on your work. I think to ultimately answer your question, it's about telling that story and then growing that relationship, finding ways and finding additional inventory and finding additional strategies within what you do to grow the relationship. Can you grow your inventory, and can you grow your ask to that 25 or 50 or $100,000 level? Do you have a level that commands that? So, as your relationship grows, are your deliverables and your inventory growing to that level? And then also, how do you steward that relationship and grow it to that point over time, understanding that it does take time. These things are not going to happen overnight normally to grow a relationship to that size. So understanding the process and having the emotional intelligence, which we can talk more about, to go through that and grow that process and have patience with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Question popped up here related to the pandemic. So a number of us had been obviously planning large-scale in-person events. As we're transitioning, hopefully, out of the pandemic, what is the current, kind of climate of funders with regard to events?
Well, certainly restricted. We all have been affected by the pandemic, and the budgets of various funders and donors and foundations. So that's no question. But I think we talk about this in sports. Sometimes I have to wear different hats. Sports is in fundraising. We had to control what we can control. So we had to control the professionalism of the Black brand. We had to control the professionalism of the Hampton Roads Chamber. We had to control the professionalism and the execution of our virtual events with the hope and promise now as things begin to turn around with the virus of what our in-person events will be, and have patience to get back to those in-person events or get back to doing what it is that we were doing before with a modified connotation to it on how we will deliver, when things lift, and hope that we've stewarded that our relationship and maintained a relationship with our partners, even though they might not even be giving at this point, still maintaining that professionalism, still maintaining that sincerity, so that when they get their budgets back and we get our in-person events back and our pre-COVID flow back, that they will want to come back on board with us and even grow that relationship. Again, that wasn't the answer maybe that a person's looking for, but COVID just makes some of these things come to a screeching halt. What we can do though is take this time, and I've done it, I know you've done it, to expand our capabilities, to expand our strategic plan, to look within our house on how we can be more attractive and how we can be more creative for when we do get in front of these funders, when things do get back to normal? How can we be even more attractive? How can we be even more efficient? And how can we be even more functional so that persons will see us as even more attractive to donate to?
Yeah. Okay. Follow-up question to that. And then I want to segue to emotional intelligence. Can we confidently plan for large events in 2024? Just what's your take on that? Look, I know nobody really knows, but 2024, is it safe to start planning or?
I think by 2024, if things continue to go the way they're going, I think by then or even before 2024, we can have large events with some kind of spacing, large events with masks, large events with testing, large events with other precautions that the CDC or the state brings into play. So, we just don't know how these things will go. We don't know if we'll have setbacks. We don't know if we'll have longstanding or permanent restrictions. Or variants to the virus. Who knows these things? But again, it's back to controlling what we can control and being the best at what we can control or best at what we do as things reopen. So if it's hybrid events at some point, then let's be the best at that. Have the best Zoom background, have the best streaming platform, have the best set of inventories, and deliver the best on those.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as things reopen, be the best at what we do there. That's easier said than done. But in a sense, we have the time to do that. Our schedules are not what they were when things were live and we can meet in person. So now you have some time to kind of look within your organization to strategically plan, enhance your deliverables, enhance what it is that you have to offer to these companies and donors and foundations so that you can be that much more cutting edge when things open back up.
Yeah. Yeah. Emotional intelligence. What's the interplay when we're talking about networking and fundraising? What are the things that I kind of need to be tuned into as a leader as I'm building?
Well, I think so many times, and again, we want to be sensitive to the topic, but we want to be real with it. We have to understand the capability of our donors. We have to understand who is going to fund and who is not going to fund us. We have to understand how we position with these organizations that we want to get alongside. We have to understand their endpoints and their passion points, and if they even align with ours. So we have to understand the timeliness or the timeline that it may take to grow these relationships or even establish relationship. So when I say emotional intelligence, you've made this connection with the major company you want, or you have this person on your show, or you have this person in your in-person meeting, but understand that there's more layers to it than before I just get the check or before I get the $50,000. And understand that this is this long process and comprehensive process to this stewardship that it may take to get just $100 or $1,000 or $10,000. Having the emotional intelligence and the patience and the staying power to go through that process and to allow that relationship to mature and in the many various ways that it takes to do so to ultimately get what it is that you're trying to get for your organization. So when I say emotional intelligence, just have the staying power, just have the strategy, just have the creativity, just have the subject matter experts around you, the collaboration around you to really attack these relationships and do it in a way to where you don't ruin the relationships or in the relationship. Do it professionally so that you can ultimately get what it is you're trying to get and achieve your goal in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, makes sense. Questions from you all. Naomi, I see our resident auctioneers on here. Rita, Megan, any questions? Cheryl stays with a bag of questions.
That's fine.
Yeah. Talk about some of the challenges that you have met with as you've been looking to build. Talk about some of the rejection that you've experienced and how you maybe overcame that to build a relationship. Because I know we don't get yeses right out of the gate. I mean, like you said, it's a process. We might start out with several no's and then get to a yes from a major corporation. Maybe talk through some of that.
Certainly. It's personal, even if it's this a foundational story or it's a personal story that you're trying to promote, or if you're just fundraising for your organization, or you're that organization's a fundraising person, but it is personal to you because you're telling this story. You're taking time to put together sponsorship proposals and set up meetings and send out correspondence, have live visits or virtual visits nowadays of these persons to your property, or have them come into what you do. So it is personal. It is a lot of work, but understand it's in some cases just business to them at the onset, and they're just looking for fits for their organization. So yes, you have to put out this sincere and personalized and tried and true ask, but understand that it may just be an easy no to them because they're out of funds, or they're partnering with other people, or it's not a fit. What we have to continue to do is not take that personal. What we have to continue to do is overcome adversity, from these no's, or from this rejection, or from something not being a fit, and work harder to position yourself with persons who are a fit. Work harder, as I said before, to leverage your network, to have persons in your network set up meetings for you that can be productive, and that can be not such a cold call, and that can be a little bit more leveraged in nature because you have somebody who knows this person, making this mutual connection. So again, continuously strategizing on how to be better. Never falling back on my proposal didn't get accepted, or I didn't meet budget last year. Even though these things are hard, even these things are adverse, how can I continuously be better? How can I continuously to be the best at my offering? Don't worry about other people's offering. Take advice and take partnership, and take components from other people, and things that you learn from, but how can I be the best in my delivery and my offering and my deliverables, to ultimately, get that ask, and continue to ask across that field and industry. So I'll find somebody who does want to partner with me, and maybe not the person that you sought out, but it may be another company, even larger, person who takes a liking to what you do, and that person can even be a sounding board for you to attract other persons, which we can certainly talk about that too.
Yeah, okay. So let's drill down. My head is spinning, right? Because I'm in
Okay.
this world day in and day out. But um, I really would love it if we talked about kind of getting that first appointment, that major, you know, what strategy are you employing when, we sit down with this decision maker? So we're prepared for the meeting. Now, how do we get this meeting?
Well, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier, finding out how they're reaching out, finding out how they're interacting, finding out their appetite for taking in new partners. Oftentimes we call these persons sponsors or whatever, but let's talk in terms of partnership.
Sure.
But how are they going about interacting? Are they doing leadership series? Are they looking for speakers? Are they looking for persons to present to their organizations? Are they actively looking to get out and sponsor things? Or are they not sponsoring things? So just it's almost like a job interview. You're looking at the traits, and you're looking at the signals and signs that these companies are giving off, and looking at their footprint and what they're doing, and studying their every move, along with trying to find out, persons that you may have who are partnered with this organization or who are within this organization, and combining those two to try to get that meeting with the person who you need to get in front of. And even if it's a meeting with a separate department of a person in this corporation who you get a meeting with, developing that relationship to get over to the marketing or get over to the communications or corporate sponsorship department, you need to do whatever it takes. So having that staying power and emotional intelligence and just stubbornness in some cases, persistence in some cases, to kind of push through until you get that person. And sometimes that's taken years, and admittedly, sometimes that's taken years with no result. But trusting that process with the relationships that you decide to pursue, it certainly will work in the end if that person is a fit and if they have monies to give.
Yeah. I was wondering if this is something that you would recommend doing. So I can remember making an ask. It was a fundraising campaign for a grant program that we put together. And ultimately, um, we started with the program before we'd reached the fundraising goal. And what we did was we continued to notify funders, potential funders, of the results that we were having after the program began. And it was so interesting that we had three of those funders who hadn't really said no, but hadn't given us a yes to ultimately come on board. You know, they were pleased, as you mentioned, with the level of professionalism with which we were implementing the program. They were pleased with the results that we were bringing, you know, as far as the number of people who had signed on to kind of learn about the grant program, et cetera. And they ended up, you know, into 2020 coming on board. Um, I don't know. I wonder from your vantage point, communicating with potential funders without the meeting in indirect ways. What are some of your kind of strategies there? How do I share the impact that I'm having? What are some of the best practices um, to gain their attention?
Well, good, good. I think, to the first part of your statement, sometimes having the proposal or having the results or having that portfolio, which you had in front of you that was already being executed, that was already a plan in motion with maybe some sponsors, with some partners, and with this action plan, that's also a lot of times very attractive to sponsors because you're doing your homework already. You're moving in the right direction already. You have your content, you have your plan that you're executing, and it makes it that much more easy for them to get on board. Sometimes, and I've had to do it both ways, we've had to kind of create these deliverables out of thin air and sell people on a dream. And that's what it is, sell people on a vision, even better word. And persons will, oftentimes take hold of that, but you had your
Because
vision.
we're honest, that's all we have at
Right,
first, right?
right.
That's
It's a
all
vision.
we have.
So
If
you're a
you come to this
venture
table-
capitalist of sorts.
Yes, yes. If you come to this table, this is what we'd like to produce, you know. It's a good point you raised.
So you have funders who will believe in that. You have venture capitalists and persons who want to believe in that vision. And if you sell it enough and you're visionary enough and you have your strategic plan in place and then they feel that's strong enough, then they will get on board with that. Again, it's nothing better to have a video of the event you already had, results and statistics and analytics and feedback of what you've already had. So persons can get on because they're trying to understand how many people they're going to get in front of. They're trying to understand, where is this going and where is this going to be displayed? They're trying to understand, your footprint and who you affect and how you're positioned in the community. Oftentimes we think in terms of, they should sponsor me and I have a great brand and I have a great logo, but who you're positioned with, maybe you're positioned with the right people. Maybe you're positioned in the wrong areas. Maybe you have persons on your board who are the right people. Maybe you have persons on your board who are not the right people. Maybe they have other competitive sponsors or sponsors who are a part of your organization, who they may not want to be positioned with. So you have to really do an internal look at everything that you do to make sure a major organization who has all kinds of constraints and all kinds of regulations and all kinds of public restrictions possibly or public cautionary measures, can they be positioned with you? Can they be seen in public with you? Can they be seen all over social media with you? And the answer may be no in some cases, and we don't even understand why. It's something we just need to clean up and reposition.
Yeah, that's major. Two questions here. In the virtual space, how should nonprofits adjust their thinking in terms of exposure and deliverables for sponsors? What are sponsors looking for? I guess ostensibly, what are they looking for now?
Well, they understand, and they're going through the same thing. They understand there's only so much reach you can have virtually or digitally or by way of Zoom, but they do want as much creativity as possible. So they understand that they've had to go through Zoom also. They've had to have their leadership series, their speaker series, their meetings virtually. But how creative is just your backdrop? How creative are your guests? How and compelling is your show? How are you positioned on social media? How are your posts made out of? Or made out? How are you engaging the sponsors that you do have? Is there a sponsor at the beginning or end of your show? Are you even mentioning your sponsors? Do you have a sponsor in your backdrop? These are minor things, and there's a million more things we can talk about. But how are you? How are you positioning the existing sponsors that you do have? And how are you working with the funds and resources that you do have? How are you positioned on LinkedIn? How are you positioned on social media? And are you leveraging the sponsors that you do have? So, for instance, if you have a sponsor, are you leveraging their social media reach, which may be much larger than yours? Are you leveraging their video capability, which could get you out in front of more people or enhance you digitally? So again, looking for the little bit in some cases that we do have to leverage that to make sure we're making the most of that partnership outside of just taking a check from them. Many times we make a mistake in $2,500 or $10,000 or $50,000 even. But that company or partner may have resources much more valuable than cash to you. So you use those resources and look in those relationships. Could that person help you with marketing? Could that person help you with video? Could they help you with your own sponsorship proposals? Could they help you with networking? Are there other persons that they know who can be valuable to you? And so many times we overlook that, and that's not their job to give you additional resources or additional networks. So it stops there. It stops with $2,500. But it's not just about growing 2,500 to 5,000. How can you expand your network through these persons? If you find a director of marketing at one major company, even though your goal was to get 10, how many directors of marketing do they know? If you find me, you want a baseball coach. Well, you got one baseball coach, but how many baseball coaches do I know? We don't, sometimes we stop our mentality at stop. We work so hard to get to that ask and get that check. We get the check and then go on vacation. But there's more to these persons than just a check and what it is they have to offer. So each person, if that's 10 or 110, we have to vet and look to exponentially grow our network versus by way of each person that we have in that network. And when you do that, it's not a virus thing or a negative thing. It's this positive growth. It's this positive pyramid. It's this positive exponential growth that, next thing you know, your network's so large, you can't even steward all these persons because, people just know so many people nowadays.
Right? That's a good problem to have, but that is another challenge. And I'll ask you about that. I wanted to share this example that kind of speaks to what you just shared. So one of our sponsors for our big annual conference, of course, last year, budget constraints, they were not going to be able to make a financial sponsorship. This is Old Dominion Institute for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. What they did instead was, and this was infinitely more valuable, was they built out one tier of our programming and bought all of those speakers. But not only that, they connected us to the director of their online programs that in turn provided all of the licensing to make our multi-tier conference happen. I mean, the value there was just, it was unbelievable, So just a testament to the fact that, if you focus on building the relationship and, there's so much more you can gain sometimes than the dollar. So I wanted to ask you this with regard to something you just said about growing the network and then stewarding the relationships. How much time do you spend each week on finding new and building new versus kind of nurturing existing? Would you say there's a ratio, a formula there for someone that has to be kind of in both lanes?
Certainly, it's a balance, a give and take, and certainly on a director level or VP level or president or CEO level or any level, it's certainly this time management strategy that you do have to lay out, because it's one thing to get new networks and get new meetings set up and get new partnerships set up, but not be able to steward those things. So I think it's going back and being realistic about your network, your staff, your capabilities, your time constraints, your workload. And then if that's one new relationship per week, one new relationship per month, one new relationship per year, only taking on what you can effectively steward and effectively maintain. So that's a tough job to text and call and Zoom and stay connected with all these different persons. But there are ways to do that. So if you, Blair, have 1,000 relationships or 500 relationships or whatever that may be, and we certainly can't reach out to all those persons in a month or a quarter or a year, can they all be a part of this show? Or can they be on a mailing list? Or can they be interacted with virtually? Or is there some way that you can touch these persons continuously to let them know, we're thinking about you and we're supporting you and we're engaged with you and we're trying to deliver for you? It certainly still can be done, but it is certainly a time-consuming process. You need great note-taking, great time management, great recording skills, or just a great memory. Sometimes some of both. But you do have to make touch points with these persons and let them know you still do care. Set up meetings with them, set up Zooms with them, to stay connected and let them know what it is that you're doing and stay current, so that they can kind of tell your story and be a part of your story.
Yeah.
But absolutely, to answer the question and not dance around it, there's some hardcore time management that needs to happen and a hardcore schedule to maintain your daily responsibilities and to maintain these relationships moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. What else? Got about 13 minutes, 12 minutes. I'm going to check over on the other platform and see if there are any questions that populated there.
Well, I think that your network is part of your capabilities. So I think as long as your network is expanding and you're leveraging your network, your capabilities theoretically will always continue. I think when you stop networking, when you become kind of landlocked, either by way of your organization or by way of your outreach, I think your capabilities may stop. You think in terms of your personal circle. Do you need somebody for home repair? Do you need somebody for car repair? Do you need somebody for lessons of some kind of professional area for your kids? Do you need investment advice? Is there somebody or even yourself in need of a job? These relationships can certainly be leveraged, but if that's 100 people, then you have 100 chances to get these things done. If that's 10 people, then the way that you can get these things done is a little bit less. So continuously expand your network so that your capabilities can continue to expand, and you can continuously expand your capabilities. Oftentimes people will say, well, this is my personal time, or this is my weekend, or I'm on leave for the next month, and that's great, and have your personal time. But can you have lunch with those persons? Can you have dinner with those persons? Can you Zoom with those persons? Can you have a personal relationship with them that one day can be a business relationship? Networkers, leaders of organizations, I don't know how much time you can actually take off. Well, yes, we have to have balance. Yes, we have to have stress relief and time away from our phones. But I think at all times, even in a positive way, you're thinking about relationships. You're thinking about positioning yourself. You're thinking about, how you look to your public network. And I think if you do that, you'll continuously be attractive, and you'll be continuously be cutting edge to the persons who, have an affiliation to you.
That's powerful. Got me.
I think another thing that you ask, you say, what else is there? So networking, I have some networking on this side, some fundraising on this side. Something we talked about at Norfolk Fest events at all times: over deliver when possible. You may say, hey, look, you have one table at the dinner, you have one chance on the show, you have 2 tickets to the fundraiser. Can it be 3? Can it be
right? Can it be 12?
Can you be on the show 2 times? Can we display your logo 4 times instead of 2 times in the background? Can we allow your president or CEO to introduce the show? Always be thinking of ways, never stop thinking of ways that you can impress these people. Because it's not about you and your deliverables, it's about them and their funding source. It's about them and that relationship. It's not about you, or you want to take off, or your event's over, or I'm tired of delivering. It's all about them, because the competition is so great. We may think, okay, it's just my sponsorship ask. They get thousands of asks, especially these major companies, per year or per month. So what is it? I ask my baseball players this. I still do some baseball training. What makes you attractive to the coach to make you want to be that number 1 starter? I can use this because the analogy is the same. What makes your proposal or makes your organization be number 1 to be funded first? What makes you important enough to Cox for them to write you a check? This is a national company. Why would they even give you a check?
Why? Right.
So the thing of it is, you have to over deliver and over position yourself. Over not being a bad word in that term. You have to be so well positioned and so well delivered and so attractive, another term we use, so that persons will notice you off the page. We wouldn't hire somebody if they didn't have attractive experience. You wouldn't have me on the show if I hadn't raised $50. You know what I'm saying? So why fund you? And we had to continuously ask that question so that we can position ourselves so people will want to fund us and increase their funding.
Yeah, so true. I was thinking about how sometimes building that personal relationship inside the business relationship is a way that you can deliver more, right? And so I remember one particular funding relationship, this person gave me their cell, so I'm thinking, all right, I'm a texter, Facebook Messenger, I'm a communicator. So as we were making updates to the project, as there were more things that I could share, I started sending those things via text. And then I just kind of asked, like, how do you like these texts? And they were so excited to be able to see in real time the project progress, that it seemed like it perpetually invigorated the relationship, and it was a way that I was adding value without even really thinking about it. So I'm just with you that the more that we can do, the stronger, the better for whatever our effort is. Um, so huge. Yeah, I think we do have to be in the relationship business. A lot of times we can be some of us like working alone and just very comfortable in our box, but this is about really getting beyond that, would you say?
No, I certainly would. And, you brought up a good point of in your box. It's not about you. You have to be a relentless. I often take it back to sports and the best coaches we think in terms of college football or basketball. These coaches, yes, they're great at X and O's, but they're relentless recruiters. And it's the very same thing. At Norfolk State, I had to recruit for baseball and run the baseball program, and I had to recruit corporate sponsors, and it just worked so hand. So the problem was I didn't have a clone or a twin brother,
Right.
but the beautiful part of it was the same thing. It's calling, it's following up, it's sending a letter, it's making at that time an in-person visit, it's bringing them on campus, it's showing them the facility, it's showing them your vision and vision. So it's literally doing that in the morning for sponsors, doing that in the afternoon. It was the exact same. And then the beautiful part of it was you're still selling Norfolk State University, so it's the same sell in just different ways. But just being bold, being out of your comfort zone, being out of what it is you want to do, and taking chances and taking opportunities. This is kind of what we do nowadays. When I was starting off, you had other responsibilities to coach or do things. So my time was limited, but I would never turn down an opportunity to be in front of 7 people or 70 people or 170 people just to let them know about our story. I'd take anything just to let them know. And you hear this in religious leaders, you hear this in politicians, you hear this in business leaders, you hear this in visionaries. They get in front of anybody they can tell their story in front of, so that because one day they knew that network would expand and that vision would expand, and they would be in front of the number of people they wanted to be in front of. I think so many times people say, well, this coffee talk is not worth it, or this event is not worth my time, or this presentation, I got to make this long PowerPoint in front of my busy schedule is not worth my time. But you don't know who you will meet. You don't know who you'll be in front of. You don't know who will take a notice to you. So in our business, nobody forced us to be in this business. In our business, we have to take opportunities. We have to get up early and we have to stay up late to get our brand out, get our vision out, get our vision, our mission out, and our story out to as many people as possible. You do not know who is listening. All I see is participants down here. I don't know who's listening. So I had to be as professional as possible and tell our chamber story, tell our sports commission story, because I don't know who where this will go and who will see this. And you have to have that mentality at all times in our business. Never a mentality of necessarily I'm off, or I don't want to do this, or I'm too tired, or I'm too busy. You had to keep telling that story and keep pushing that network, or keep pushing the limitations of that network.
Yeah. And as unfortunate as the pandemic has been, oh my goodness, my network has grown exponentially by virtue of the meetings that I likely otherwise would not have been able to attend, Um, I feel like we're in a place where we can really take advantage of new opportunities to connect. Are you having a similar experience in the virtual space?
It's certainly been easier to have multiple meetings over the course of a day. In the past, you might have 1 or 2 in-person meetings over the course of a day and have your normal workload, but you might have 3 or 4, which is not always necessarily healthy with
I know,
Zoom
not
fatigue
always.
and all this.
Yeah.
But you probably wouldn't have 5 lunch meetings in 1 week, and in some cases you probably would. But at times now with Zoom and the virtual space, you can connect with a lot more people. So again, that's us using this as a benefit, or using this to our advantage. I found that I've had some more time, not with as many in-person events, or not with as much of a workload in some other cases, to kind of more look within. And I keep talking about that. what is my strategic plan? Or if you have this great strategic plan, are you executing that? Or do you even know what all those things mean from this consultant who developed that strategic plan for
Right.
you?
If it wasn't your plan, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, just really taking the time to kind of learn within your organization and learn who you are, better tell that story, and just sit down. If it's a napkin or a white piece of paper or these large Post-its, and sit down and, who I am, why would somebody want to give me $1? Why would somebody want to connect with me? And what creative ways am I keeping up with the industry to promote the message that I have? If all the other nonprofits are on video, on LinkedIn, having virtual hybrid events and having speakers, and if I'm not doing that, I'm behind the 8 ball. So how do I stay cutting edge? How do I take advantage of this time? I keep thinking in terms of an investor. I do this in my own house, and I do this, with the chamber. How can I take advantage of this time, both to be better, and then, what trend or what emerging trend do I need to be a part of to position myself for this time during COVID or after COVID? And you had to continuously ask yourself that and collaborate with others to, help you to achieve that.
Yeah. I think any of the nuggets you shared could have been kind of concluding comments because they're all super powerful. We got about 2 minutes. Is there anything you want to say just by way of encouragement or inspiration or information in closing?
Well, I'll end with this. I use the word human, but humans are intrinsically programmed to give. Both as individuals, as funders, as foundation leaders, and even corporate leaders, even though sometimes we see them as not. I think their hands are tied by their corporate constraints or their budget or whatever it is. But remember, humans are inclined to give. We want to give to the Girl Scouts going into Walmart, as we go through the door. We want to do that. Maybe we can't give it, or we've already bought those cookies. But just remember, human beings want to give. We got to tell our story to fit to what they want to give to. And then understand to be persistent to where we continuously talk to where they have the funds to give. We'll eventually get those if we're kind of in their wheelhouse or in their fit for us to be given to. So keep up the fight, keep giving or keep asking for that give, and understand that these things will come when you're positioned correctly and when the timing is right.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claudell. This has been phenomenal. So excited I captured this via recording, and we'll definitely be sharing it out to other platforms. So those.
This show was brought to you by Positive Vibes Incorporated, our consulting services. We do credit fixes, we do tax resolution, we lend private money, and debt consolidation. So if you need some of these services, we're waiting here for you. Credit fixes, tax resolutions, private money, and debt consolidation. Make sure you call Positive Vibes Incorporated.